Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Good morning, I'm Herb, I'm an alcoholic. Hi, thank you very much for the committee inviting me up to do what I love to do. I have a passion about talking about transformation. That's what I'll be talking about today. A spiritual awakening. This afternoon, I will be talking about steps 11 and 12, which I consider to be the heart of the matter, a spiritual coin. But first, I would invite you to pray the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, I also want to thank, in addition to the committee, specifically Don L. for inviting me to be the workshop facilitator for this morning and this afternoon. Perhaps we could just take a minute to have a little reflection, get settled in our seats, get your back straight, your feet on the floor, your hands comfortable, and breathing in and out, comfortably, quietly. Come to your center. You're here for about an hour and a half, at least I'll be here. You're welcome to leave earlier. But I'll be here for about an hour and a half. And once you leave here, you can return to whatever it is, the drama du jour. But for now, why don't we just stay centered for an hour and a half? It could be a catalyst that will give you a shift in your consciousness. That is my prayer. That is my preparation. My Lord God, I have no idea where I am going. I do not see the road ahead of me. I cannot know for certain where it will end. Nor do I really know myself. And the fact that I think that I am following your will does not mean that I am actually doing so. But I believe that the desire to please you does in fact please you. And I hope I have that desire in all that I am doing. I hope that I will never do anything apart from that desire. And I know that if I do this, you will lead me by the right road, though I may know nothing about it. Therefore will I trust you always, though I may seem to be lost and in the shadow of death. I will not fear. You are ever with me, and you will never leave me to face my perils alone. What kind of an AA meeting is that? Exactly. Well, my sobriety date is February 21st, 1984. I celebrated 30 years this year. It's not my fault. Yeah, really. My wife is here, and she'll celebrate 30 years at the end of this year. And she started this journey for us on February 10th, had a little relapse during the year, and got back after she realized that she can't get sober for the kids. She can get sober for herself. And that's a huge lesson. And We'll be married 49 years this coming April. It's not my fault. Exactly. Okay, so, and my sponsor's name is Ed. I changed sponsors after 28 years. And I had my original sponsor, Lloyd, who moved out of town, and I wanted a local man as an accountability partner. And my home group is the Thursday night men's stag step study crosstalk meeting. It stays very focused. And so, how many here are alcoholic in AA? A good slug of you. How many are, their primary program is Al-Anon? Wonderful, I'm so glad to see you here. How many then are in other 12-step programs as their primary program other than AA and Al-Anon? Wonderful, wonderful. How many are in here who are not in any 12-step program at all? Oh, okay. You see, Bill Wilson, in the first printing of the first edition, it's still in the fourth because the preface to the first edition is there. He said in that very first paragraph, at the close of the paragraph, our way of living may have its advantages for all. Our way of living, which is what I'm going to talk about, steps 10, 11, and 12, may have its advantages for all, not just the alcoholic. It's including the Al-Anon. It's including anybody in any 12-step program for sure, because they're all based on the 12 steps. But even if you're not in a 12-step program, the methodology of the 12 steps will bring about, precipitate a spiritual awakening if they've done to the best of your ability. Einstein said the consciousness that created the problem cannot be the consciousness that solves the problem. We need a shift in consciousness. We need a new consciousness. We need a new way of thinking. And we need a spiritual awakening. That's the promise of the 12th step, isn't it? You don't hear that talked about in that context very often. The 12th step promise. It's right in the step itself. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. Anybody who does the steps, as outlined in the big book precisely, and completes the 9th step, and continues on a daily basis their 10, 11, and 12, will have and will sustain a spiritual awakening. That's a guarantee. That is my experience, and that is my experience of anybody who has done that work. But it's also very clear that we don't know that we don't know, and we can't see that we don't see. Bill suggested that we needed a spiritual awakening, and he really developed that from the Oxford group, who got theirs from Carl Jung, who, when he was giving advice to a guy that he had tried to get sober for an entire year that relapsed after the year, Carl Jung said you need a vital spiritual experience. This is on page 27 in the big book if you want to make a note of it. I go kind of fast so you won't be able to follow it. He said you need a vital spiritual experience, which is a phenomena. It's an emotional displacement and rearrangement. Ideas, emotions, and attitudes which were once the guiding forces of the lives of these men are suddenly cast to one side. And a completely new set of conceptions and motives begin to dominate them. He calls it an emotional rearrangement. There's several references in the big book to setting aside your old ideas, your old experience, your old expectations. Not the least of which is the beginning of chapter 5, how it works on page 58. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. The man who took me through the steps in 1988, notice I was 4 years sober at the time. I had not gone through the steps out of the big book, and therefore I was restless, irritable, and discontent. Words from the big book. But this was a way of life for me, restless, irritable, and discontent. But I didn't know that I was, because that's how I had always been. And if you've never experienced anything different, it is the norm. And then he took me through the steps. It took a year, and it changed me. And that's what a spiritual awakening said. He said to me after we talked for about an hour, he said, Herb, he said, my God, you've got a graduate education in philosophy, a graduate education in theology, a graduate education in psychology, and now you're 4 years sober in Alcoholics Anonymous, and you've been paying attention. You know the book and you know the steps. He said, you just haven't applied them. Yeah. He said, now, if you're not looking at me, look up. He said, you have a lot of information, but you have no transformation. He said, you have knowledge that's academic, but it's never connected to your heart and to your experience, and most especially to your behavior. And I knew he was right. I didn't know how right he was until after I, in fact, had done the work. And so I had a shift in consciousness, that spiritual awakening that is, in fact, explained to us in Appendix 2, a spiritual awakening in the back of the book, page 569, I believe it is. And it's really simple. A spiritual experience and a spiritual awakening, that's the purpose of that appendix, is to contrast and compare. The difference is merely time. The product is the same. A spiritual experience is like a light switch. Boom, it's on. Boom, it's off. Instantaneously. A spiritual awakening is like a dimmer switch. You press it at a very low voltage. There's a little light. And as you turn the light up a little bit, the lights get brighter, and the lights get brighter, and the lights get brighter. A spiritual experience and a spiritual awakening. But he says it's a change. The essence of a spiritual awakening is a change in the way we think and feel and behave. And it's done to us, not by us. You see, this is a room filled with people who have tried self-help. You have many books. You've gone to seminars. You've gone to retreats. You've gone to workshops. You've gone to church. You've gone to therapy. You've even been in a 12-step program periodically, and maybe even now, all right? And it hasn't changed you. You haven't changed. Your life hasn't improved. And until, in fact, we break the code of the 12 steps by doing them with somebody who knows what they're doing, then we have this transformation, this change, this conversion experience, this turning that the big book talks about from our self-centeredness, which is the nature of the malady, to other-centeredness, which is the nature of the spirit. I'm going to talk about entering the world of the spirit today. But, oops, there we go. Maslow, who is a psychologist of some repute, said as long as you have the basic needs here, you're not going to, as long as you don't have the basic needs, you're not going to improve as a human being. So we need to get abstinent first, or at least be in an effort to have air, food, water, sleep, etc., And then we will begin to develop emotionally, and then we will begin to develop relationships, and then we will be able to have some psychological balance and health, and eventually spirituality will in fact be available to us. And this is absolutely my experience in the process of coming into Alcoholics Anonymous at age 43 in 1984. And thawing out. I thawed out in the meetings for 4 years with a sponsor, going to a meeting every day, calling the sponsor every day, but I didn't change. I didn't know change was necessary. I didn't know change was possible. And I certainly didn't know the method of change. So many people think that meetings are Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, meetings are not AA. Meetings are not Al-Anon. Meetings are not GA or MA or CA. Whatever the 12-step program is that you're in, meetings are an integral part and a very important component. I'm not dismissing it. But Bill only mentions meetings twice in the big book, in the first 164 pages. He says it's a place where newcomers bring their problems once a week, and in between we gather in people's homes to share our experience and fellowship. Almost throwaway lines, not certainly part of the directions of how it works. And yet, someplace in our history, beginning in 1935, it's morphed to meetings being the program. Fortunately, Bill Wilson wrote a textbook with specific instructions based on their experience of the program. A program, a methodology, a precise set of instructions that if you do this, it will eliminate your addiction, broader certainly than alcohol. It will eliminate your addiction and give you a spiritual way of life. He says alcohol is only a symptom, bottles are only a symbol. Alcohol's not the problem. Oh, alcohol's clearly the problem if alcohol's the problem, right? First half of the first step. But the second half of the first step, so poorly understood in the rooms, is really the heart of the matter, unmanageability. And absolutely our life will become unmanageable if in fact we're in some form of addiction or certainly in early recovery. But what happens to a person like the people in the room who has over 10 years of freedom from their addiction? See, 75% of you in this room have over 10 years. And yours and my life is as unmanageable today as it was before we came into the 12-step rooms, based on my power, based on your power. Unmanageability is the spiritual malady, and we'll be taking a deep look at that. Because the steps rebuild our relationship. They build a relationship first, the first 3 steps with power, the second 4 steps with self, the next steps here, which could include step 10, reestablish our relationship and maintains our relationships with others. And then Bill calls this our way of life. Steps 10, 11, and 12. That's the program. Even this isn't the program. This is just the introduction to the program. This is the opening staircase, the steps to go into the room. And Bill says very clearly at the beginning of step 10, we enter the world of the Spirit. Really? In step 10? I mean, despite the fact that we've had steps 2 and 3, which are very spiritual, and the rest of the steps, which are very spiritual. In fact, he refers to prayer in many of the steps because he understands and has experienced and wants us to understand and experience that we're powerless under step 1, but we're powerless under steps 2, 3, 4. We're powerless under step 5. In every step, he asks us to pray because he acknowledges that we're powerless to know what it means, and we're certainly powerless to do it. Under each step is powerless. And therefore, we enter a way of living that assures a sustained connection with power. So I'll talk about emotional and spiritual sobriety. This morning, it will be about emotional sobriety, which will take us through a discussion about step 10. This afternoon, I'll talk about spiritual sobriety, which will focus on steps 11 and 12. It's arbitrary, all right? It's like we're a human being and we have a body and a mind and a will. There are 3 parts, and I'll talk about the separate parts, but they're not separate. I just talk about it so I can understand the process, and I can understand the experience, and I can understand the methodology as to how to impact each one of those things. All right? So I talk about emotional sobriety at step 10, and I talk about spiritual sobriety at steps 11 and 12. But step 10 is a very spiritual tool for spiritual sobriety. So I'm merely presenting it this way in order to be able to parse it and have a decent discussion about each part of it. Sobriety is, of course, abstinence, and emotional meaning balance, all right? We don't control anything, let alone our emotions, but we learn how to manage them. We do this through an understanding of how the brain works. I'm not a physician, I'm not a clinician, and in fact, I have no advanced degrees. But this intuitively gave me some information about the human being and how it works. We have the brain stem, which is the lizard brain in us, which tells us whether to eat it or screw it. All right? Yeah, it's at that fundamental level of survival, that Maslow, at the physical level. And then we have the middle brain in evolution that is the limbic system that gives us feelings that guide us in terms of our anger and our fear and our shame and our guilt and our dishonesty and our secrets. All right? This is the area, the limbic system, that needs to be managed by the cortex and the neocortex. We call this the executive functioning, all right? We have a responsibility to develop this, to manage this, and to manage this. That's the magic of the 12-step program. I was in a monastery for 7 years. I studied to be a Catholic priest in a monastery from ages 17 to 24. 7 years of silence. And a good friend of mine says, and he hasn't stopped talking since. You know, you think I would have connected to spirituality or at least some level of psychological sophistication and normality, and I did not. Then I studied psychology to at least save your mind if I couldn't save your soul. And I didn't get normal. In fact, I found I was drinking more. Yes, of course. How do you deal with that information except repress it and anesthetize yourself? All right? So here's the male brain. You might recognize some of this here. All right? All right? Lame excuses gland, attention span, avoid personal questions gland. Notice the listening particle. Yeah. And of course, this is way too obvious, right? All right. All right, hold on, women. You're not exempt. Here's the female brain. All right. Need for commitment. chocolates, shopping, all right? Men, pay attention. The sex gland is connected to the listening gland. Is that great, huh? You got to break it up with something. That's right. And so we're asleep. One of the philosophers from Russia, Gurdjieff, said we're asleep dreaming that we're awake. Yeah. I came into the program at 43 thinking that I was a Renaissance man. Yeah, and at age 48, when I finished this process of the step work 5 years later, I found out that I was a Neanderthal. Yeah, exactly. Waking up is not a happy event sometimes, all right? And so you can see that our belief is the key here. All right, there we go. But the problem with the beliefs, and you see it's in a different color, it's the lens through which we look. Because it's the lens through which we look, we can't see the lens. Because it's the lens through which we look. If I had blue glasses on, you all would be blue. I wouldn't know that you were blue because I was looking through blue lenses. If I had pink lenses on, you all would be pink. I wouldn't know that you were pink because I have pink lenses on. Each of us grows up developing lenses from when we come out of the hopper as a survival mechanism, both in terms of the physical, in terms of the emotional, in terms of the psychological, in terms of the spiritual. All these efforts at survival develop the lens through which we look, and we don't know that we have a lens through which we look that's delusional. I mean, everybody in here is reasonably intelligent. Really, seriously. I don't even know you, but I know that. First of all, you had the good sense to come to my workshop. How could you not see and care about the damage to yourself and others from your addiction? All right? Yeah, that's the nature of the addiction. Chuck C. has a great book, but I like the title in this context. He says we need a new pair of glasses. We need our lenses reground. We need new lenses. Because the old lenses through which we look is a belief system that's delusional, that's demented, is diseased, that creates behavior that's dysfunctional, all right? But we can't look at it directly. We have to look at it tangentially. Our culture says we need to know something, feel good about it, and then we'll do it. But our program and our experience tells us that we need to do something, and then we'll know something and feel good about it. Well, there was just a research published at UCLA by a prominent psychiatrist actually, Dan Siegel, and he has done some statistical research that says, you know what? He's doing it in brain plasticity. That is how the brain changes and how you can train it. He says, we now know, 10 years we've known this, and we didn't know it before, that we can in fact change our brain organically. And it has nothing to do with what we know, and it has nothing to do with what we feel. It has everything to do with what we do. And when we do differently, we begin to know differently because we create new neuronal synapses. I know these words, but I don't know exactly what they mean. I just read the book. All right? Right. We have new brain chemistry. All right? And he says synapses that fire together, wire together, meaning that we create new habits by doing it differently. Well, your sponsors have known that. They're called acts contrary to my will, right? Go to the meeting early and stay late and help out in between. I didn't want to do that. But when I did that, I became part of the community. Now, I didn't know, and he didn't know the sophistication of all of this, but we've known it from our practice. Show up. Be accountable. And so in the 10th step, we enter the world of the Spirit. As I mentioned, I have a 3-part model in which I look at the first step and then each of the steps thereafter. What makes us specifically human is not our body. What makes us specifically human is that we have a mind that knows. We're the only sentient being that knows that we know. We can self-reflect. We can transcend ourselves and look at ourselves. No other sentient being that we know of can do that. Plus, we have a free will that allows us to make decisions, to take voluntary actions. And we're the only sentient being that we know of that can do that. There's no place in the material body that is the mind. That's just a facility that we have that includes the brain that thinks, the heart that intuits, the gut that has instincts, the senses that have 5, and etc. So you couldn't have a mindectomy, all right? Because there's no place for it. It's, good. But, and you couldn't have a willectomy, because it's a function in us. It's not an organ in us. But these are the 2 things that the steps, all right, treat. If you ever want to have some fun, take a look at the steps from this paradigm. Knowledge and decision action. The odd steps are all about decision and action. The even steps are all about knowledge and lists. This methodology of the 12 steps is built specifically for the transformation of a human being. There's a lot of talk on the campus, in the rooms, about the difference between recover, recovering, recovery, recovered. I don't want to get into the controversy because it doesn't help anybody, and that my passion and the goal of my ministry is to help, all right? So this is my approach to it, because Bill Wilson, in the title page of the big book, tells us how many thousands of alcoholic men and women have recovered. And he uses that term recovered consistently. It's about the first half of the first step. We no longer have the allergy that is in action because we're not using our addiction. We no longer have a mind that's in obsession because we're no longer compulsed about our addiction. We've been given freedom by the grace of God and our willingness, and it happens without our permission, and it happens differently from everybody. I mentioned I got sober on February 21st, 1984, and that's because the hospital asked me to quit drinking to support her recovery. I had no intention of stopping drinking. Drinking wasn't my problem. Drinking was her problem. Yeah. All right. And I never drank again. But I didn't go to AA for 3 months. I didn't pray. I was completely unaware that I had a drinking problem. And that's a story for another day. She went to the hospital, she got the treatment, she got the information, she went to meetings, she got a sponsor, and she drank again. All right? These are the experiences that we have. Some people get it right away, some people relapse once or many times. I sponsor several people who have relapsed anywhere from 5 to 10 times. There's no prediction as to when you'll get it because it's not in our control. What part of powerless don't we understand? Huh? We get so brain dead to the word powerless because we hear it all the time. Oh, I'm powerless. Really? How come you're not sweating? When you do you realize what that means? That you have no choice? All right? That you have a guillotine hanging over your head on a trip trigger at all times, and that it could go off like that, And Bill says, the only antidote is a spiritual program? That is incentive enough for me to put juice into my spiritual program. I have physical sort of recovery, which was a gift, but I did not have emotional or spiritual recovery until I did some spiritual work. All right? And so Bill says at the beginning of step 10, we're not cured. We're recovered because we've been placed in a position of neutrality, he says in step 10 in the big book. By the time you finish step 9 and enter step 10, he said you've entered the world of the Spirit. You've entered the world of the Spirit. And you've been placed in a position of neutrality, but you have a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of your spiritual condition. I'm quoting from page 85. All right? He says every day, reprieve. Have you looked that word up? Stay of execution. Yeah, that's why I like the guillotine analogy. Stay of execution. I have a daily reprieve based on my spiritual condition. And then he elaborates what does that mean in a very dense paragraph that needs to really be unpacked. It means that I need to create my vision of God's will for me, and then I need to place my will in alignment with that vision and my behavior in alignment with those principles. That's why the step 12 is perfect. Carry the message and practice principles in all our affairs. But don't forget step 11, in where you get the power in the morning and the guidance in the morning to be able to do that. And so our way of life, he says, is to keep the channel clear, to fill the channel, and then to empty the channel. I love that analogy, and it fits right in with the prayer of St. Francis, where we become channels of grace because we've been turned from the self-centeredness of the disease and the spiritual malady to the concern for and the belief in and the actions about other-centeredness. Other with a capital O, our relationship with the mystery. Other with a small o, our relationship to the community of humanity. And so the problem is powerlessness. I mentioned that at the beginning. And you heard our speaker, fabulous speaker, talk about powerlessness and that not everybody is powerless over alcohol. Only 1 out of 10 people. I don't know the statistics with regard to drugs and gambling and sex and internet and internet porn and work and rage. I don't know the statistics, all right? But it's not 100% of people. It's just, it's a proportion of people. Now, this is up here for the Al-Anons. 5 out of 10 people, at least, are impacted by the 1 out of 10 people, right? So we've got 60% of the people that are into some form of substance or process addiction. Admitted we were powerless over our addiction. The Al-Anon being addicted to control and manipulation and to the drama of the alcoholic. But the real problem, that our life had become unmanageable, is 10 out of 10 people, I speculate. And I said at the beginning, Bill talked about our way of living has its advantages for all. My second book, Spiritual Awakening, which is on the table out there, is written as a methodology for everybody to approach the 12 steps. Everybody, not just people in 12-step. And to be able to do those steps and have a shift in their consciousness and wake up from being asleep to become the true person, the true human being that they are. Unmanageability, what does it look like? Well, Bill Wilson gave us a great discussion about unmanageability on page 52. he has a paragraph that says, I am having trouble with personal relationships. He calls this paragraph the bedevilment paragraph. So I call that the bedevilments right up here, see? But what does that mean? I went to the dictionary again. What does bedevilment mean? To be controlled as if by devils, on a puppet string, all right? St. Paul said it in the Christian scripture. I do what I don't want to do, and I don't do what I want to do. That sounds like me and my history. That may resonate with you and your history. I do what I don't want to do, and I don't do what I want to do. And I go, ooh, I get so frustrated. So I go to a therapist, or I go to a minister, or I go to a sponsor, and I go to a meeting, and things don't change. Because sitting in a meeting, expecting to change, is like sitting in your garage expecting to become a car. I am not dismissing meetings. Don't please go out and say, Herb trashed meetings. Don't do that. I go to 2 meetings a week, all right? I'm meeting with alcoholics every day. I'm meeting with people in recovery every day, addicts of a variety. I do a lot of work with food addicts now because they have come to me for help. I send them to their respective programs, but I try to help guide them through the steps so that they too can have that shift in consciousness. I am having trouble with personal relations. I can't control my emotional nature. I am a prey to misery and depression. I can't make a living. I took that into meditation and I said, at this point when I'm doing this, I was 10 years sober. I said, how does that apply to me? I'm a professional. I have a really good reputation in my career. I make a decent amount of money, and I've been there a long time. How does that apply to me? And the wee small voice said, Herb, you can't make a living that satisfies you because you're never satisfied. My voice got quite aggressive. It said, you're never satisfied. You're a black hole. There's not enough pleasure or power or money or recognition or adulation, is there, Herb? Oh, thank you for sharing. I have a feeling of uselessness. I am full of fear. I am unhappy. I can't seem to be of real help to other people, nor do I really care to. I took that into meditation. I studied to be a Catholic priest, a missionary. That's all about helping people. I studied to be a psychologist. That's all about helping people. I did the self-help stuff to become a better person. That's all about being a nicer person. And now I'm in AA and I'm sponsoring. That's all about helping people. And I'm complaining to the Spirit, what do you mean I don't care about other people? And the voice got louder. It said, Herb, you don't care about helping people. You want the reputation of helping people. Oh, yeah, I heard the moan. You see, my ego had taken AA and all of the wonderful wisdom that we have, and I used it to polish my image and my ego and my reputation. Because I'm a narcissist. Now I'm a recovered narcissist, but you never really recover. Just ask my wife, scratch the skin a little bit, and the old Herb just comes roaring out, right? So the problem, as I mentioned before, is that we have a belief system that's dysfunctional, and we need new lenses to create healthier emotions. And in step 10, the 12 and 12 gives us the nature of, and defines and clarifies the nature of the 10th step. You hear lots of discussion about the use of the 10th step. Do it in writing, do it at night. Those are not instructions from the Big Book or the 12 and 12. The 12 and 12 says, it's a spiritual axiom. Whenever I am disturbed, there is something wrong with me. I don't know about you, but I hate that. Until I did the steps when I was 48 years old, all the way up till then, anytime I was disturbed, it was because you weren't good enough, you weren't recognizing me, you didn't pay me enough, you didn't treat me well, you were insensitive to me, or whatever. But it was never my fault. Whenever you are disturbed, there is something wrong with you, a spiritual axiom. And Bill calls it in the 12 and 12, he calls it a spot check inventory. On the spot, when I'm disturbed, I take some actions. And yeah, well, some of you have actually had this experience, but other than a couple 502s, which are very light touch, by some of your standards, we're in jail, and look at the guy. He's in jail, he's holding on, his entire world is that jail. Right? Until you do the step work and you find out that in the 10th step, you watch for the things that you saw in the 4th step, right? Resentment, fear, dishonesty, and selfishness. Bill Wilson captures the nature of the bedevilments that he listed on page 52. He tells us the exact nature of them on page 62. Selfishness, self-centeredness is the root. This is the root. And this is the fruit of the root. If I had an orange tree up here, and it had roots into the ground, and it had oranges on it, you would identify immediately it was an orange tree because of the fruit on it. You would see the leaves and the branches and the trunk of the tree and the oranges. But you wouldn't see where the life of the tree comes from. This is why step 4 asks us to look at the fruit and then penetrate down to the root. We look at our lenses until we take full responsibility for our reaction to the problem. We won't understand that it's our reaction that's the problem. The problem isn't the problem. The same with the fear. Bill suggests that it's because of self-reliance. It's the same as dishonesty. We're just trying to hide animal reactions of fight, flight, and camouflage. But they're all to have a survival at the physical level, but even survival, especially survival at the emotional and the psychological level. These are defense mechanisms. So, on the spot, when I am disturbed, Bill says, watch for them when they crop up. Huh? Not if. We'll never transcend our humanity. All right? I did a stint with the steps about 10 years ago with a man. The last time I went through the steps out of the big book thoroughly with a guide, 2003. And he had given me the instructions on the resentment inventory. I called him back after a week of prayer and review, and I said, I have no resentments. He said, yeah, that's right. He says, you do a daily 10-step, a thorough 10-step, you do a morning practice and an evening practice of meditation, you're practicing spiritual principles in all your affairs, your mission and ministry and consciousness is about helping other people. Yeah, you don't have resentments anymore. Yeah, that's right. He said, try a couple other words. Not resentment. Try a couple other words. I said, what are those? Who annoys you? Who irritates you? Bam, I got 10 people. Well, because we don't ever outgrow our humanness, right? Absolutely. But an irritation and annoyance is not like a resentment anymore. It's a fire, but it's not a bonfire, right? So what do? We take action, he says, in the 10th step. This is the heart of the 10th step. This is the tool of the 10th step. He says we pray. Well, why do we pray? Because we're powerless. We discuss it with somebody. Why do we do that? Because we're human and we need to be accountable. And when we talk about it, there's no more secrets and it takes the power out of it. We make an amend because normally when we're in this disturbance, we're disturbing somebody else. But if not, we don't have an amends to make, meaning repair the damage. And the final part is, he says, we resolutely turn our thoughts to helping somebody else. He doesn't actually say that we help somebody. He says we turn our thoughts to helping somebody else. Well, we know, based on our experience in current psychology, that when we begin thinking a certain way, that's how we will eventually behave, right? The book, Law of Attraction, or the DVD, The Secret, these are all talking about as we think and who we are is what we attract into our life. I don't like the end game of The Secret and the Law of Attraction because it becomes very materialistic, but there's a dynamic of psychological and theological principles there that are very, very, very sound. And then if you take a deep look at the 12 and 12, don't miss the 12 and 12. It's a wonderful supplement to the big book. It has very few instructions in it about the steps. It's Bill Wilson's commentary at 15 years of sobriety about his experience with the steps, but there's very few instructions. Step 6 and 7 might be an exception. Certainly step 11 is an exception. I don't understand people using the 12 and 12 as a mechanism to do the steps, but you can't do the steps wrong. All right? You may not do them as effectively or as helpfully as you will later on, but you can't do them wrong. I mean, I'm an example of that. I didn't do steps 1, 2, and 3 from anything. My sponsor said, "Do you have a problem with alcohol?" I said, "Yes, step 1. He said, "Well, you were a monk, weren't you, for 7 years?" I said, "Yes. Steps 2 and 3, done." Yeah, go do step 4. Oh, okay. And I didn't know what to do. Finally, after 2 weeks of balking, he said, "Why don't you just write your story? Write your autobiography." I did that. I know today it's not good enough by my standards from the big book, but I also know that it was good enough because I stayed sober. I didn't change, but I stayed sober. I stayed around until I had thought out enough to be able to hear and experience from somebody who had done the steps from the big book so that I could ask him for help. And autobiography actually is I think, a very decent way of warming up to doing a first step or even doing the fourth step, because it may be the first time that you get a perspective on your life, and that's what I did. And the fifth step in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous says we tell someone all our life story. That sounds like an autobiography, and all is in italics. Hence, that's the big book's way of saying, hey, this is important. So I have no problem, and in fact, it's part of my instructions now to the people I work with, do a short autobiography. The thing that cracked it open for me back in 1984, cracked it open, meaning made me aware that I had a problem with alcohol. They asked me to do an autobiography of my drinking. Not of my life, just of my drinking. And after 30 minutes of writing, for the very first time, I saw a pattern that brought to me a question. What's the problem? I have a problem with alcohol, but what's the problem? And what's the solution? And what I know today is the question is so much more important than the answer. You hear it all the time. This is a book of answers, and it is a book of answers, the big book. But it's a book of questions. Pay attention to the questions in the big book. Ask yourself the questions in the big book. What makes me an alcoholic? When I begin drinking, do I lose control? When I stop drinking for a period of time, do I begin drinking again? What was the level of consciousness? What was I aware of? What was I feeling? These are powerful questions to penetrate the denial, the inability to see that we don't see. All right? The question is so much more important as sponsors. Give them the questions that you can from your experience. Don't give them the answer. Meet them where they are, not where you are, not where you want them to be, not where they want to be, not where they think they ought to be. Meet them where they are and help them frame the right question and hold the question in the spirit of set aside, as we talked about at the beginning, to set aside my old information, to set aside my expectations, to set aside my experience. Set it aside, don't throw it away. You may have heard about the set aside prayer. It's not a prayer from the big book. It's not an official prayer from anywhere. It's just a prayer based on the theme from a couple lines and paragraphs that I read from the beginning of our discussion here today. So what happens in the 12 and 12, it tells that we then have a forgiveness and trust and honesty and love as the experience of our life. All right, so you can see that resentment now is converted to forgiveness. Fear is converted to trust. Dishonesty is converted to honesty, and selfishness is converted to love. And I get the question all the time in my workshops and one-on-one. How do I know what God's will is, and how do I know what my will is? It's a fabulous question. It's the heart of spirituality. It's the heart of the 12-step program to ask that question, because it's all about finding God's will and then aligning ourselves with that, our understanding of that will. So what is God's will? You'll know God's will when you see it. If you are experiencing this, you're in your will. We call it willfulness. If you're in here, you're in willingness, you're in God's will. All right? By your fruits you will know them. I have learned not to pay too much attention to my head. My head will lie to me. Yeah, today even. My head will lie to me. It's less delusional today. It's much more connected to reality today, but it's still potentially delusional. So one of my step guides said, Herb, pay attention to your feet. How you behave will tell you what you believe. How you behave will tell you who you are. It's quite confrontational. If you want to really know what you believe, look at how you behave. If you really want to know who you are, look at how you behave. Because how you behave is what you believe. How you behave is what you do. It's very objective. And this is called emotional sobriety in my lexicon. And then we come to forgiveness. Thank you. Then we come to forgiveness. That's part of the 9-step process in final conclusion. It's part of the 10-step process in terms of a way of life, a spiritual principle. But there's lots of misinformation about it. Go to the dictionary. Again, the dictionary is the best friend next to the big book. Go to the dictionary and look it up. And when I looked up forgiveness, look at my hand here. Look at my hand. When I went to the dictionary and I looked up the word forgiveness, it said to release them. Yeah, that's all. It wasn't to condone or forget or tolerate or ignore or approve or excuse or minimize or any of these words. All right? I had a young man that I sponsored whose father molested the young man's 2 young daughters. And he found out about it, and of course they called the police, they called the psychologists, and this man is in program, and he forgave his father. He loves his father. He forgave his father. He understands the sickness of alcoholism and whatever else is going on with that kind of addiction. He understands that. All right? But he put him in jail in the penitentiary for 6 years. Because he was not going to say to his daughters that what Grandpa did was all right. We don't get to surrender justice. All right? He forgave him, but he asked for justice. All right? Forgiveness is not any of those things. What it is a decision. It's a decision. Certainly not to retaliate, etc., as you can read it, exact revenge, seek compensation, or judge. It's not that. What it is a decision to release them and to release ourselves and to be released. I get the question all the time, do I put myself on my resentment list? And I go, well, yeah, actually, the big book actually supports that. On page 66, it says, we were sore at ourselves. That's remorse. But since alcoholics are always putting themselves first, I say, put yourself last on the resentment list. Once you've got a facility for analyzing the resentments you have for other people, perhaps that tool will be then valuable to you. I also have the question, well, do I put myself on my harms list? My step 8. And my answer is the same. Yeah, it's legitimate. You have harmed yourself with your addiction, absolutely. But put yourself last on the list. And if you still feel that you need to make an amends to yourself after you finish making amends to all the other people, then figure out a creative spiritual way to do that. My experience is, with myself and the people I work with, that after they have in fact gone around making amends and repairing the damage and making a commitment to change their own behavior, that's part of amends, that in fact there's been such healing on the part of the other people and such healing on their part that they feel whole again, and they don't need to have any type of special process or ritual with regard to their own forgiveness. But if they do, then the tool is there. The tool of forgiveness begins with step 4, in which we begin to take a look at our resentments. And it goes through the entire process of steps 4 through 9 and concludes with a process where I go out to repair the damage and I make a commitment to stop behaving that way that created the damage. And that kind of healing releases me. That kind of healing releases them. We're all released. If, in fact, you're looking for a book that would capture the entire vocabulary and process of forgiveness, the best one I've come across is written by a psychologist. It's very approachable. It's not in scientific words at all. It's written for us. Is Forgive for Good by Fred Luskin. And I've taken the work that he's done and incorporated the work that I've done, and I've put together a meditation on forgiveness. There are several handouts that I think they're only at this door here that will have a lot of the slides from here, as well as a meditation on forgiveness, which might be helpful to you, as well as a prayer, a sheet of prayers, including a set-aside prayer that I've developed and wordsmithed over time. All right. So the process of forgiveness, as I understand it and as I have experienced it, is to name it in the step 4, for instance, to understand it in the step 5, and to identify what are the rules, the unenforceable rules that I have. Anytime that you hear the word should in your head, anytime you hear the word should in your heart, anytime you hear the word should come out of your mouth, you're identifying one of your beliefs. Mothers should love children. That's a belief that you have. Is that your experience? Was it true in your life? You see? We have to confront reality with our belief about reality. And then we are able to come into an effective process of forgiveness when we identify unenforceable rules. Because I might write the script. I might even get you to read the script. I might make sure that you understand the script, but there's no way I can get you to do it. We have a lot of unenforceable rules, which is our beliefs. Acknowledge reality, which creates our healthy attitude and take responsibility. This was huge for me. I am the creator of my life. I am the creator of my problems. Bill says it, so our troubles are of our own making. It's a throwaway line until you've done a fourth step. And then you see, oh my God, nobody's doing it to me. I'm not a victim. I'm a perpetrator. I have created the life that I have. I am responsible for the life that I want, and there's nobody coming. Ooh. And there's nobody coming. No, there's nobody coming. Yeah. I am the one I am waiting for. Yeah. I am the one that I am waiting for. The steps help me to find my true self and show up for my life. And so we take action. Nothing happens without that action. All right, just as a recap of forgiveness, it's a process of releasing them and to be released. Pay attention to the prayer of St. Francis. Pay attention to the Lord's Prayer. Neither one of them need to be essentially Christian prayers, even though they came out of the Christian milieu. Take a look at them. They don't have any theology in them about Christianity. They have deep principles of spirituality. To the extent I release you, I am released. To the extent I release you, you are healed. To the extent I release you and you are healed, I am healed. That's how it works. That's good psychology, let alone good spirituality. And so rather than being in a jail, do you get it? There's nothing holding him here. He created the bars, he's holding the bars, he's in total freedom, but he doesn't know that he's in freedom. Exactly. So I'll be talking about spiritual sobriety this afternoon, and I have an announcement I was given. My workshop will be held in the lunch area. I have no idea where that is. From 2 o'clock till 3:30. In the lunch area from 2 o'clock till 3:30. I'm not done yet, but I did have a cartoon that was given me by some of my workshop people. I quote Einstein a bit, and I usually have a chalkboard where I'm doing a lot of work on the chalkboard to illustrate different things. And so this is a fictitious cartoon of Einstein. And he's looking at the class and he's writing on this chalkboard, the average alcoholic is very much capable of such feelings as love, affection, intimacy, and caring. These feelings just do not involve anyone else. Oh, I know. So what I would like to do is end, how about with the third step prayer? And we'll do it a little differently. Most of you know the third step prayer, but it doesn't matter. And you don't need to know it, you don't need to read it. I'm going to do it antiphonally like we did in the monastery. On the one side of the chapel, the monks would begin a prayer. On the other side of the chapel, the other monks would respond, and back and forth like a tennis match. They call it antiphonal, anti meaning back and forth, phonal meaning sound, antiphonally. So I will begin the prayer, the third step prayer, praying a word or a phrase. I will pause and then you pray it. I will pray the next word or phrase. I will pause and then you pray it. We will pray the third step prayer antiphonally. The third step, oh, did you know? I only learned this 3 years ago. Surrender's not in the big book. The word surrender's not in the big book. It's not even in the 12 and 12. Yeah, no place. All right? No place. I had to change my whole vocabulary with regard to, but I got a better understanding of the third step. A decision to turn my life and my will over to the care of God. I am not giving my life to God. God doesn't want it. I am not surrendering in such a passive way and let life happen. That's irresponsible. What I am doing is taking a will that is at cross purposes with reality, and I am aligning my free will with my understanding of God's will. I am praying to turn, and I experience that I am turned from willfulness to willingness, and I place my will and my behavior in line with my understanding of God's behavior, and that's harmony. I make a decision to turn, I do some steps, and I am turned. A process that's done to me, not by me. And so we're going to pray the third step prayer. Antiphonally. God, I offer myself to you to build with me and to do with me as you wish. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I might better do your will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of your power, your love, and your way of life. May I do your will always. Thank you. Maybe I'll see you at 2 o'clock.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.